I'm out here gardening. It's a beautiful drizzly day. Breathing in that good ass pollen, baby. But it don't matter. It don't affect me like it does the regular human. But check this out. I want to talk about something in this video, and it's actually going to be a very important video. And I suggest that you're very present right now with this video. Okay? So you being here now, experiencing this moment, I want you to understand what I am telling you, because it's actually going to put a lot of light into what the humanity has in darkness. And this is a worldwide shadow aspect of the world. All right, you got to look at the whole world like a individual entity. Okay, I want you to understand I want to start with this because I started my last video with this, and I said that whenever somebody calls themselves God, right, they will, somebody who would follow the religious doctrines would say that that's blasphemous, right? In the spiritual movement, there's a lot of people saying that they're God, that they are the one. They are basically enlightened, okay? Here's the thing with all this. Like, for example, Jesus Christ, whenever he said he was the Son of God or the Messiah, he got mocked and ridiculed. However, Jesus never said that he was God directly. But it would imply that because he says he is the Son of God or the Messiah, or he would refer to it as I am that I am, then we would decode that as him saying that he is God. But there's also much debate showing that that's not exactly directly what it means, right? So Jesus also told people that you can do what I do, only better, okay? Now, it comes to show you're here now. We all carry traumas. We all carry things from, let's say, our ancestors. And our ancestors, let's say if there was hidden traumas, whatever it may be, we may carry that in our DNA, in our bloodline, right? And these are things that we work out here. So in other words, they lived a reality. They didn't overcome it. So now that you're here, you are aware of this information. And now you can address it and do it better because you're aware. So when you know better, you do better, right? Now, the reason that people get mocked and ridiculed when they say they are God is the same way that Jesus Christ got ridiculed and mocked for him saying he's the Son of God, or people implying that he's saying that he is God. And this is why he got crucified on the cross. This is why he got humiliated, tortured, mocked, etc., etc. Now, Jesus Christ was fully human, okay? But he never fully said he was God. But then you got these spiritual people saying they are God. Why would they get mocked and ridiculed, right? Whenever you look at this God, what does God mean, right? Because if you're saying you're God and you're saying it from the ego, just because it feels good, or just because you think you're enlightened, and I say you think you're enlightened because a lot of people think they're enlightened. They may have had a couple of psychedelic trips, a couple of spiritual experiences, and all of a sudden what it did is their ego got so blown up that their ego is expressing how enlightened they are. So they have this Messiah complex, like this, I am better than you are, or I am higher than you are. You should come to me for this advice. When in actuality, like I mentioned in the previous video, if you didn't watch it, you should watch it, because there's a lot of information there that's considered gems that would actually have you and help you understand now what it is that I'm saying and what it is that's going on the planet. Okay, so they'll have this Messiah complex. Instead, here's the thing though, the world is full of sheep. Everybody's in feminine energy. And the reason why is because if a Christian, because this is mainly Christians and a lot of religious folks, they'll agree to the fact that Jesus Christ was God, right? That Jesus was God, but he was fully human. What is the difference between you and him if he was fully human? You're fully human. So what you can't do is only because you are putting God in a pedestal and limiting yourself. And this is in the now what you're empowering. Followership. You're being a follower. You're being a sheep. You're being a feminine boy because you're following another man. And this is what followers do on YouTube. They'll start to pedestalize certain YouTubers because they give out such great information, when in actuality, all you're doing is seeing this as bigger than you instead of a version or an aspect of yourself. In fact, the reason that you're so impressed by it is because you collapsed that individual into existence. It's in you to some aspect. If not, you will not even observe them in your reality. The reason anything exists in your world is because it's in you and you're observing it in your reality. Otherwise, it wouldn't be there. And it's not to say that it never even existed. Suppose there's something you've never known or seen. Doesn't necessarily mean that it doesn't exist. No, it exists, but only because somebody else is aware of it. But suppose that this whole entire planet, there's something that nobody knew and you don't know about it, it doesn't exist. But if one person on the planet becomes aware of something, one person, say it's only one person, say you're the only person on the planet that observed some type of phenomenon that nobody's ever seen, something elaborate that it's unexplicable. Does it mean now that it exists and never existed? It exists because you just observed it, right? But suppose you're the only person on the planet, nobody else saw it, then that means it still exists because you observed it. And suppose you die and never told anybody about it, it exists because you observed it and you existed. And because you existed, right, everybody else continues and exists from their point of perspective. Your world ended. You no longer exist, right? So you don't exist. You're not alive anymore. But the information you took with you exists because you left it here with your body. Now somebody else can discover this. And it could be through symbols. It could be through thought forms. It could be through whatever. But this is exactly how religion is distorted. You get what I'm saying? The information that you are supposed to know is only going to be found within you because that person that died, that discovered something, is an aspect and version of yourself. So the moment that you go within, because that one person discovered something, you're going to discover it, but within you. Even though you never met that person, even though you don't know anything about what the hell he discovered, you will discover it in your own way. You are the all-knowing. But when you're seeking knowledge outside of you, it's because you're in that moment deciding that you don't know anything. Now, there is a fine line here, right? Just like there's a fine line between love and hate. When you come out and say, I know everything, you cap yourself off. You close yourself off to any more knowledge because now you're saying you already know everything. But if you say you don't know anything, you're also in a position, and it all depends, not what you do, how you do it. There's no right and wrong way to do things. But if you're doing it in a way that's not going to be conducive to what you're trying to do, then it won't work in your favor and it's going to appear to be bad. But you would have to know that you are the knowledge. You are knowledge. You are intelligence. An artificial intelligence, up for debate, because we can say anything designed outside of yourself can be an artificial intelligence and it was designed in the image of you. The same way we've designed God or the image of God, because supposedly he looked like a man, right? A white guy, right? And with long flowy beard and long flowy hair. So in other words, we designed this God in our image. But in actuality, that God should be worshiping us because we created that God in our image. You see what I'm saying? But in other words, we're doing it backwards. We're actually worshiping that entity or that deity. Now, when I say that a spiritual person saying they're God, but they're not really self-actualized or self-realized in any kind of way, then it is blasphemous because you're just saying the flesh is God. And in other words, you're supposed to be overcoming the flesh. But here's the thing, though. I want to talk about this, and this is very important. Suppose that you have addictions, you have certain desires, you have certain things. And when I say overcome things, because I had this question, and this is actually a very valid question. They said, well, are you supposed to just basically block out your desires? Are you supposed to just suppress them? This is what the red pillars tell you to do. Just block out and suppress these things. You can't suppress anything. Because the reason those things even exist is that they're voids that are trying to be fulfilled, and they'll look for that fulfillment through addictions. So in other words, addiction should be blessing in disguise. The same way I told you that whenever you see things that trigger you outside, they're blessings in disguise because those are things that have to be worked out within you. Those are shadow aspects of yourself. So when you look at it from the perspective of addictions, let's say pornography addictions or addictions to whatever, let's say drugs or whatnot, they're trying to give it a form, because when you suppress it, right? Suppose you suppressed it long enough, it'll just change forms. And the forms it might change into, it might be even more powerful than it was before. You can't suppress things. It'll just come out later on a lot stronger and a lot more uncontrollable because you never addressed it. You didn't give it attention. So it just laid in the closet and it just got stronger based on it changing form because you polarized to one end. So I'm going to give you an example. When you feel these urges, and it's all about, and this is why I say it's all about integration. When you feel these urges, you give it a shape, you give it a meaning, you give it a form, okay? And you can change and channel this, but as long as you give it attention, you channel it with awareness and love, integrate it, and use that energy. But that takes discipline because you might cave into the urges of what the body wants to do. But this is the thing though. It's not the body. It's the energy that's within you that's trying to express itself through the body. So the body's just an instrument. Now, what you have to do is basically become aware of that energy. It could be sexual energy that you want to release and you might want to go masturbate. But masturbating necessarily is not a bad or a good thing. Again, it's how you use it. Right? Because there's actually something called sex magic that you could perform in order to, and it's just a lower vibrational form of performing magic. There's higher vibrational forms where you're using just straight up mind and imagination. You know what I'm saying? But when you integrate the two, it's supposedly like you have a projection, you have a thought in mind, and then you become emotionally involved with it. And then you use that sexual energy to integrate all those things. You just created the Holy Trinity there. Right? That's why I said the Holy Trinity comes down to awareness. That's Father, all right? The Son would be the light, and then the Holy Spirit is feminine. The Holy Spirit, and I've always talked about this, you as the soul is the individual nature. The soul is the spiritual nature. I mean, the spirit is the spiritual nature. That's feminine. That's the totality. Individually, it's masculine, but you have to become aware of your individuality. If you're not aware of your individuality, your attention is outside of you, and you're nothing but a sheep. You're following. You're not really self-sustaining. You're depending on outside validations. It could be for sustainability, whatever it may be, for dependency. Nothing wrong with it either. Again, find balance, but we'll talk about that in another video. It's like la mano. The hand is feminine. La mano. El dedo. The finger. The hand, the finger. In Spanish, it's masculine and feminine when you describe them. But when you describe it in English, it's always the, like it's androgynous. You get what I'm saying? The beauty part about learning Spanish, and that's why when you decode certain words, you go back to the Latin, Arabic, Germanic, Hebrew, whatever versions of these words, the root words of it, right? The etymology of these things. So we got the hand, the finger, the fingers. It's still the. Los dedos, el dedo, la mano. So the totality is feminine. The whole entire collective consciousness of humanity is feminine. That's the subconscious mind. You can also tie that with the unconscious. The unconscious is what's not brought to light yet, right? The subconscious is the programming of humanity, and it's ran under a certain structure. There's people who say they don't believe in the matrix because you can all of a sudden, a man can become a woman and this, and that's not what it is. In fact, the matrix is a structure. It's nature. It's the sustainable form of nature, not the imbalanced, unsustainable, mentally disordered form of nature. Because if not, it would fall apart. It would be an abomination. The matrix is straight people. Like, for example, when you have a man and a woman that can procreate to be fruitful and multiply, you can look at the matrix as a system designed in the interest of making money or in the interest of, like, let's say if you're a spiritual person, and you know you're consciously having a baby, but you know yourself, you want to have a baby under a certain astrological sign. Everything's done with awareness. You are aware of yourself. You're aware of your partner. You're both in harmony. You got great chemistry. And then there's people who just religiously, because they want to follow the religious doctrines to be fruitful and multiply, all you're doing is adding battery cells to the matrix. Because everybody, your body's made of cells. And the cells are batteries. That's why you have organs, and everything that's marketed to you as far as merchandising, any kind of marketing always feeds to the sexual natures of men or woman or boy or girl. Okay. And that's the reason why the organs, you think that it's just harvesting organs physically only, and it's not. It's spiritually harvesting organs. Whenever you're giving into certain desires, giving into certain things of the earthly realm, you're using the energy of and vitality of certain organs, and it's going somewhere. It's kind of like when you go to a stadium, it's designed a certain way. You don't realize this, right? When you're giving your energy, like cheering your team on, that energy is going somewhere. And because the stadiums sometimes are circled, what's happening there? You know what I'm saying? You're giving your energy. Plus, you paid with interest because you had to pay to go to the stadium to watch the game, that you're investing your energy with interest because you're interested in the game. And at times you're drinking alcohol, exacerbating these energies that you're participating in, because everything requires participation. So now what happens? Sometimes you may even fight because you associate with those teams. The winners are the promoters of the organization. But if you look at it from a global scale, it doesn't matter. When you look at what people argue, like secularism or religion or politics, and like liberals and conservatives, or you got like Democrats and Republicans, doesn't really matter. It just needs your participation. That's all that matters. You just have to polarize and pick a side, and it keeps the system going. But the moment you don't put your energy to that anymore, it ceases to exist because you're not giving it energy and power. Now, a lot of the times we don't give our own existence and our own time, our own moment, energy. So then it ceases to exist. So right now, when you look at time, and I made this example in the other video, your body is tied to the time that was designed and structured to keep this system that I'm talking about, matrix, going, because you have to do everything under a certain time. You have to go to work at a certain time. You have to meet somebody at a certain time. You got to be home at a certain time. You got to eat at a certain time. You got to do anything at a certain time. You may schedule things. That's how you keep the system going. Supposedly you lived with where time didn't even matter. You know what I'm saying? It would just lose its essence and power. The last I checked, like I said, I'm creating my reality. I got 7 days to do it according to the systems that I'm in. But there's certain people who don't know what date it is, what time it is, right? What's happening in the reality of those people, though? You know what I'm saying? So here's the important thing when I came down to talking about, being, saying you are God. The God is just realizing the authority you have over your life. I'll give you an example. When we had the whole CV-19 pandemic that we had going on, the system forced people to take jabs. You had to get jabbed. If not, you could not go to work. You cannot go to the gym. You cannot go to restaurants. You cannot participate in ball games. You cannot participate in anything. So they basically told you, if you don't get jabbed, you will not be able to do anything. So what did the good sheep-like human do? They went and got jabbed because they couldn't fathom losing their job. But and this is just to test your gangster, really to test your manhood. So suppose that you said, I ain't gonna do it, I'm just gonna quit. You know what I'm saying? I'll just do something else. Suppose that through that time that you quit your 9-to-5 job, you discovered a passion in that time that you were alone. But a lot of people, what did they do during that time that they were in isolation? They didn't do anything. They picked out pornography, became the fucking, and it's all a test. Maybe the universe was testing you. You never know. Right? So people stopped working out. I saw certain people get very, very fat. And they're like, man, CV happened. And I'm calling it CV so it doesn't trip the algorithm. But they're like, man, CV happened. What do you mean CV happened? No, you happened. Your fucking laziness. Like what you really are kicked in. Which was a lazy, fat bastard. A fucking, a person who's dependent on something to keep them moving. It just, all that did was show you who you really are in that isolation. There's people who progressed, where certain businesses actually thrived, where certain spiritual expansions actually occurred, because in those moments you had time to yourself, right? Some people were locked up with their families. You got to know each other even more. You got to know the shadow aspects of yourself because you got to know what the shadow aspects of that person that triggered you is. And only that because it was just more prominent in you. That's basically God. You're taking authority over your realm. So you are self-sustaining. You're in masculine energy. You don't need to be told to do something. If they don't want you to participate, then go tell them to kick rocks. You'll do something else. You see? So now when you look at it from the perspective of, saying you are God, where are you saying it from? From the ego? Or do you, at your heart core, Know your God. But the God is not the God that they're talking in the religious aspect of things. It's more or less like you have the authority in your life. You know, when they say, if you don't believe in a higher power or God, where's your purpose and meaning? But that's the whole thing. That's why people who are in spirituality still feel that emptiness, still have addiction, still have a bunch of problems because they never found the true purpose and meaning. Nihilistically, in actuality, the person's feeding you Christianity, those are the real nihilists. They don't take humanity into consideration at all. So now when you start to look at it from the shadow aspect of things, when you're into Christianity, they'll tell you to suppress a lot of things, like even go to battle against the devil. That devil, and think about it, people get very passionate when they start talking about Christianity and they oppose evil, they oppose the devil. That's the feminine energy. That's your shadow. So whenever you're looking at devils and demons and all that, it's nothing but feminine energy. It's that shadow aspect of yourself that once you integrate it, you'll see that you are not half a person anymore. This is why when you get with a partner, you'll say, this is my other half. Because you think you're just fully man. When in actuality, you're supposed to be whole and you'll attract another whole partner. Why when you break up, you'll feel like you lost your life or something. You feel like you're just gasping for air because now you just can't live with yourself. Some people even end up killing themselves because they can't live with the fact that their partner left them or their partner cheated on them, which is also an aspect of yourself. You have to analyze those things. The emptiness and voids, the things that you see in those relationships are aspects of yourself. You can only find it within you. You can't find it through therapy or anybody else. You have to find them within yourself. So the whole world is going through a shadow aspect of themselves, especially now with the information that's going on online with like red pill, like let's say, demonizing the woman, calling them gold diggers. The system is set up a certain way. And suppose it that the men aren't in those women's lives and they become women of the world that have to basically embody that inner masculine to survive in the planet, because that's what women's nature is to survive. They'll do it at all costs. Even if they're in the relationship and they are secretly always keeping the black card on you, it's all survival, right? But do you know this within yourself? Are you that type of individual? Do you have that in check within yourself? And the systems that we're participating in, right? I mean, how, you're in the world, but not of it. But how do you take it? Do you associate with these things? So that's all I got for this video. I'm going to tie in more things because I'm going to actually be making little clips of the first video. But the reason why is because I want to further explain certain things that I spoke about in that video. And I went back and heard it. And there's certain things that I want to elaborate further on because they can become, the topics I spoke on can be a video in and of itself. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I'm going to do. Make little clips of it so that I can further understand it. So you guys can further understand it. And I can actually further elaborate on it. But if you like this video, that does help my channel out a lot. It's free to do that. And you're liking yourself too. And like, share, subscribe, and we'll talk soon.